Greetings, dear souls, and welcome to Stillness Unfolded. I'm thrilled you're here in this quiet haven where we seek peace together. Imagine a twilight long ago beneath the Bodhi tree, its leaves whispering to the breeze. The air hums with sandalwood and earth, a stillness alive with promise. A young monk kneels before the Buddha, eyes burning with questions of life and happiness. The enlightened one smiles and says, "My child, you only lose what you cling to." Those words ripple through time, reaching us like a soft wind over a still lake. We're told to strive, chase, never pause. Happiness lies in more, society insists. But what if the Buddha's secret defies this? What if joy, as years silver our hair, blooms not in grasping, but in letting go, growing lazy about burdens we've borne too long? Today, I'll unveil 8 weights we can shed with wisdom, not neglect. Picture dropping stones from your sack on a forest path, stepping lighter toward freedom. This video brims with insight. Stay to the end to catch it all. If it stirs you, give a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Your voice helps Stillness Unfolded grow. Take a breath. What burden hides in your shadow? Let's uncover it together. 1. The weight of others' eyes. In a village nestled among misty hills, where the dawn painted the rooftops gold, there lived a potter named Kavi. His days were a symphony of spinning clay, his hands coaxing vases and bowls into being, each one a mirror of his craft's quiet beauty. Yet when twilight draped the world in shadow, peace slipped from his grasp. Whispers gnawed at him. Do they marvel at my work? Do they whisper I'm skilled, or scoff that I fall short? His stall became a stage, his every motion a plea for approval. One humid afternoon, as sweat beaded on his brow, a wandering monk paused by his wares. His robes swayed like petals caught in a breeze, and he lifted a plain, unpolished bowl, its simplicity stark against the ornate pots beside it. "Why," he asked, his voice soft as a stream, "do you shape your joy to match their eyes?" Kavi's hands faltered, the wheel slowing to a halt. That night, beneath a banyan tree older than the village itself, he sat with the question, letting it sink like rain into cracked earth. Days passed, and slowly, he began to craft not for their nods, but for the thrill of clay yielding to his touch. His heart, once a stone sinking in doubt, rose like a kite on the wind, free at last. As the years trace their gentle lines across our faces, we often bear a burden heavier than the mountains, the need to be seen, to be liked, to be garlanded with praise. From our earliest breaths, we're schooled in this art, seeking the smile of a parent, the cheer of a friend, the fleeting glance of a stranger. We twist ourselves into forms we hope they'll laud, fearing their judgment as though it were a shadow stitched to our solace. Yet the Buddha, seated beneath the Bodhi tree's sheltering arms, cast a light on this tangle. Their thoughts are not yours to cradle. Opinions drift like clouds across an endless sky, born of their own tempests, their own fleeting moods, not your truth. Why, then, do we chain our peace to such fragile threads? I've trodden this weary road myself. Years ago, after pouring my soul into a lecture, I'd linger near the threshold, ears straining for murmurs of approval. Did they find me wise? Did they nod in silent reverence? It was a dance without rest, a hunger without end. One dawn, I wandered to a riverbank, the water gliding past reeds and stones, untroubled by their stillness or their edges. I watched a leaf drift on its surface, carried without resistance, and thought, why do I bend to every passing gaze? The answer came as a whisper, a weight sliding from my shoulders like a cloak worn too long. I began to speak for the truth I carried, not the applause they might offer, and peace unfurled like a lotus greeting the sun. Once, a student asked me why I no longer sought their praise. I smiled and said, the river flows for itself, not the banks. So, I urge you, let go. Cease stitching your worth from others' fleeting threads. Their approval is a mirage shimmering on the horizon, yet dust when you grasp it. Turn your gaze inward and ask, do I honor the quiet song of my own heart? The fourth silent whisper of your freedom hides here how often you pause to please, a rhythm so woven into your days you scarcely feel its chains. Live for the stillness within, and watch peace bloom where once only worry took root. Tell me, dear friend, when did you last feel the pull of others' eyes tugging at your spirit? Share below, let's untie this knot together. To the fire of needless disputes. Across a golden plain kissed by the sun, two farmers stood knee-deep in a rice paddy, their voices clashing like thunder. A narrow strip of land divided their fields, claimed by both, yielded by neither. Red-faced, they waved their arms, clutching pride as though it were a banner torn in the wind. A monk, his staff tapping the earth like a heartbeat, settled on a nearby stone, sipping tea from a cracked clay cup. The steam curled upward as their shouts rose and fell. When silence finally draped the air, he spoke, his words soft as falling leaves, an hour you've burned your spirits. What treasure have you reaped? The farmers glanced at the muddy field, its stillness mocking their fury, then at each other. Without a word, they turned and walked away, the paddy untouched by their clamor, serene as ever. How often do we hurl ourselves into battles of words, convinced that victory will pave our path to peace? In the vigor of youth, we argue to prove our ground, our logic a shield, our rightness a throne, our worth a trophy to hoist high. But as the years gather like autumn leaves upon the forest floor, a quiet wisdom stirs within. Most disputes are storms in a teacup, stirring chaos where stillness could reign. The Buddha taught this beneath a sky stitched with stars. To cling to the need to bend others to our will is to sow seeds of suffering. If they turn their faces from your light, why dim your own to force their sight? Peace lies not in conquest, but in release. I've felt this fire's heat too keenly. Once, I locked horns with a friend over a trifling thing whose recollection of a shared day was truer. Hours slipped away, voices climbed, and when the ashes settled, we stood weary, no richer in truth or joy. Later, beneath a canopy of stars, I laughed at my own stubbornness. What had it won me? Silence would have been our balm. Now, when discord sparks, I pause and ask, will this steal my peace or plant understanding? If the answer wavers, I step back, a still lake refusing to ripple for every stone cast upon it. Once, a companion pressed me to debate a point of no consequence. I smiled and said, let the wind argue with itself, I'll sit and watch. Choose your battles with care, dear one. Let others cradle their illusions, your energy is a rare gem, not to be frittered on strife. The third quiet hint of your strength lies in this, how fiercely you guard your tongue, a habit so deep you might not see its might. Spend your light on serenity, and let the tempests of others fade into the distance. 3. The burden of fixing all. In a hamlet cradled by whispering bamboo, where the wind sang through the leaves, there lived a woman named Lila. Her heart was a lantern, lit for all who stumbled in the dark. A neighbor wept over a lost harvest, and she dried their tears with soothing words. A child tripped on the path, and she bandaged their knees with tender hands. A friend sank into despair, and she bore their weight as her own. Her shoulders bowed under the load, yet she pressed on, driven by a silent vow. One twilight, her strength frayed like a worn thread, she sank beside a stream, its waters murmuring over smooth stones. A monk approached, his eyes gentle as the moon's glow, and asked, "Why do you carry their rivers?" Lila's voice trembled, "If I don't, who will?" He smiled, a ripple breaking the stillness. Each must learn to swim their own waters. That night, she slept deeply, her dreams unburdened, the stream's song lulling her into peace she'd forgotten. We often crown ourselves healers of every wound we see. We offer counsel, shoulder tears, stretch ourselves thin to play the savior, believing it's our duty to mend the world. But as the years weave silver through our hair, a truth unfurls like a scroll: not every sorrow is ours to soothe. The Buddha spoke of compassion free from attachment, love that lifts without claiming another's pain as our own. Like a butterfly wrestling free of its cocoon, growth demands struggle. To always intervene is to steal the chance for others to find their wings, to rise stronger from their own depths. I've been Lila in my own seasons. I'd lie awake, plotting paths to ease others' burdens, friends lost in doubt, kin tangled in woes, until exhaustion whispered a harder truth: their roads aren't mine to pave. Once, I spent days guiding a soul through a storm, only to see them drift back into it. I learned then to offer a hand, a word, then step back with grace. I ask you now, how often do you hoist what isn't yours to bear? Share your thoughts below. Let's reflect as one, tracing the lines of our giving. Release this load, and feel your spirit soar like a kite cut loose on a boundless sky. For the chains of perfection and regret. Once, in a shadowed cave carved by time, a sculptor labored over a block of stone. His chisel struck day and night, seeking flawlessness, a statue to silence the world's breath. When it stood finished, its lines gleamed like ice, admired by all yet loved by none. A monk wandered in one dusk, his sandals whispering on the stone floor, and traced a finger along its cold edge. "Perfection is a ghost," he said, "you chase it, but it flees." The sculptor's eyes brimmed with tears, his hands trembling as he saw decades lost to a phantom. He took up his tools anew, this time welcoming cracks and flaws, letting the stone breathe its own story. The village gathered, not to marvel, but to cherish its raw, human warmth, and the sculptor wept again, this time for joy. In our younger years, we dread the stumble, polishing every facet of ourselves to gleam. We mourn missteps, replaying them like a lute with a snapped string, each note a pang of what might have been. Yet Buddhism offers a softer lens: imperfection is the clay from which wisdom rises. Mistakes carve us into who we are, regrets only shackle us to shadows long faded. The Buddha's voice rings clear across centuries: do not linger in the past, life breathes in this moment. Every fall has sculpted you. Why grieve what forged your depth, your tenderness? I once mourned a choice that sent me astray, a chance lost, a path abandoned in haste. For years, I carried its weight, replaying the moment I turned away. But in the hush of meditation, beneath the temple's ancient roof, I saw, without that twist, I'd lacked the compassion that now colors my days. Once, a novice asked me why I smiled at my flaws. "They're my teachers," I replied, "and I honor their lessons." Let go of perfection's fleeting shadow and regret's lingering echo. The fifth subtle sign of your release hides here, how tightly you clutch what cannot be undone, a grip so routine you miss its strain. Embrace your scars, they map the soul you've grown into, a tapestry richer for its threads of error. 5. The clutter of things. A merchant once filled his home with treasure, silks that shimmered like rivers at dawn, jewels that caught the light like stars, gold that weighed his shelves until they creaked. His wealth swelled, but his steps grew heavy, his house a cage of splendor. One night, a fire roared through the village, swallowing his hoard in its hungry jaws. A monk found him sobbing amid the ashes, his hands clutching air. "What did you lose?" the monk asked, his voice steady as the earth. "Everything," the merchant wailed. "No," came the reply, "you lost what owned you." The merchant paused, then laughed, a sound bright as the dawn breaking over the ruins. Freed of his chains, he walked away lighter than he'd ever been. We pile our lives with things, believing they'll fill the hollows we fear to face. We labor for them, hoard them, guard them, thinking richness lies in their gleam. But as age tiptoes closer, a truth dawns: possessions anchor us, tethering our spirits to dust. A Buddhist monk strides the earth with a robe and bowl, his heart a boundless sky. Why? He carries nothing to lose, nothing to bind him. Clear your space, and your mind breathes free, each release a step toward a horizon unburdened. I once clung to boxes of relics, gifts from forgotten hands, keepsakes of days long gone, until I asked, do they lift my soul or weigh it? Most didn't. Letting them go was like shedding old skin, each item a breath regained. Once, I gave away a trinket I'd treasured, a carved bird from a lost friend. A child took it with a grin, and I felt richer than ever. Try it, part with one thing today. Tell me below, what did you set free? The sixth quiet clue to your lightness lingers here, how much you hoard without feeling its cost, a burden so familiar it hides in plain sight. 6. The trap of pleasing all. A flute player once stood before a restless crowd, his notes bending to every cheer and sigh. He played fast when they clapped, slow when they murmured, soft when they leaned close, loud when they drifted. His fingers blurred, his breath frayed, until he crumpled, the flute slipping from his grasp. A monk nearby, leaning on his staff, said, "You cannot be every song." The player grinned through his exhaustion, lifted his flute, and played a melody born of his own heart. The crowd thinned, but the true listeners stayed, their eyes alight with the tune's honest beauty. We twist ourselves to please, saying yes when no burns our tongue, dimming our glow to warm others' comfort. We wear masks, shift shapes, believing harmony lies in their smiles. But as years gift us clarity, we see, our joy matters too. Say no with kindness, yes with fire, and trust that those who cherish you won't demand a facade. Once, I bent too far, agreeing to a task that drained me, only to hear, "You should have refused." The lesson stung, but it freed me. I've felt this trap's pull, bowing to guilt until I chose my own peace. It's a quiet rebellion, a reclamation of self, and it lifts you like a breeze after rain. I recall a day I said no to a demand that clashed with my spirit. A friend blinked, then smiled, and our bond grew truer. Who do you still strive to please, bending where you might stand? Let's muse together below, tracing the edges of our yielding. 7. The rush of a fleeting life. A hare darted through a forest thick with shadow, its eyes fixed on the horizon, seeking the end of its path. A tortoise crept behind, tasting each leaf, feeling each breeze rustle its shell. At dusk, the hare collapsed, panting and hollow. The tortoise settled, its heart full of the day's small wonders. A monk perched on a stump laughed, his voice a ripple in the stillness. Speed blinds you to the path, what have you seen? The hare twitched its ears, but the tortoise nodded, content in its slowness. Life isn't a sprint to be won. We chase milestones, triumphs, markers of worth, missing the tea's steam curling in the air, the wind's song through the branches. Buddhism offers mindfulness as a lantern. Be here, fully here. Slow your stride, feel the earth beneath you, taste the moment's fleeting grace. Joy hides in the pause, not the race's end. I once raced too, measuring days by tasks checked off, until a sunset stopped me, its colors a sermon I'd nearly missed. I've ceased hurrying now. A walk is a prayer, each step a note in a quiet hymn. Once, I sat by a lake, watching ripples spread from a single drop, and realized I'd forgotten how to linger. Savor one moment today. What did you find in its depths? The 7th silent nudge to your calm waits here, how fast you move past what matters, a haste so routine it veils the world's gifts. 8. The shadow of tomorrow. A fisherman paced the shore each night, his brow furrowed, storms brewing on the horizon, nets returning empty, years creeping toward frailty. His sleep was a tangle of fears, his days a rehearsal for woes unborn. One evening, a monk joined him, his gaze on the waves. "Where is the storm now?" he asked. "Not here," the fisherman muttered, glancing at the calm sea. "Then cast your net today," the monk said, his smile a crescent in the dusk. The man laughed, a sound like pebbles tumbling, and fished under the sun's warm embrace, his heart steady for once. Worry steals today for a tomorrow we can't hold. The Buddha taught beneath a sky vast and open, only now is real, a single thread in time's weave. You've weathered storms before, loss, doubt, unexpected turns, and here you stand. You'll meet what comes with the same resilience. Let fears drift like leaves on a gentle current, unclaimed and powerless. I've shed countless what-ifs that once crowded my nights, fears of age, of want, of fading. Gratitude now anchors me, a breeze on my skin, a child's laugh in the distance. Once, I fretted over a future I couldn't see, until a storm passed and left me whole. I learned then, worry builds nothing but shadows. Release one fear tonight, what lifts in its wake? Share your shift below, and let's greet the present together. Beneath that Bodhi tree, cradled by the earth's quiet heartbeat, the Buddha offered no promise of a life without storms, only the gift of peace amid them. As the years pile like lotus petals at our feet, we're not weighed down by age, we're blessed with the chance to release what no longer serves us. You've striven enough, dear one, through trials, through triumphs, through the long march of days. Now, it's time to live lightly. Happiness isn't a distant shore to sail toward, it's here, in the rise of your chest, the softness of this breath, the stillness of this fleeting now. If this journey has kindled a spark in your heart, if these ancient tales and whispered truths have lifted even one stone from your load, then share it with another soul who needs its light. Tell me in the comments, which burden will you lay down first as you step into tomorrow? Your words are a gift, not just to me, but to this growing circle of seekers on Stillness Unfolded. If you felt the echo of this tale, I'd be so grateful for a like, a subscription, and your thoughts below. It's how we weave this tapestry of wisdom together, how we bring more stories to light for you and countless others. This video is a river of insight, and I hope you've drunk deeply by staying to its end. Until our paths cross again, may your steps be gentle, your spirit unburdened, and your days wrapped in the peace of simply being. Walk softly, friends. Stillness awaits.